But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Surf Daddy, Click OK, Len, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in the Flipside Discord server, so welcome one and all.
How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Having a little bit of a nostalgia session in the pre-show, discussing early internet forums and how people would communicate if you're a flat earther in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, and you put a load of flat earth information onto Vlogspot or Bebo or MySpace or Friends You Reunited. It's a good chance it's now not there anymore. So I came up with a phrase, digital entropy, which is to say things that are online and accessible and feel like they'll last forever actually don't last very long at all. Furthermore, you can memory hole a lot of things if you don't like them. If you've got control of the internet, you can just remove things. Currently, if you've got control of the algorithms, you can censor things. You can either remove them permanently and remove the person that's making them from the platform that they're making them on, or you can limit the traffic to that particular person's stuff. So I guess an example of that would be us in terms of the censorship one, at least. So here, there's a very limited audience that our information gets put in front of as of about, I don't know, 7 years ago. They flipped a switch at YouTube and directed all traffic that searches for Flat Earth to anti-Flat Earthers. So essentially, you have people like Simon Dan and I keep wanting to use these people's character names from my book. I've just got to stop myself from doing it. Not a Professor Dave Explains. People of that sort of ilk get the traffic. If you search Flat Earth, that's where it'll take you to as the top results. So there was a time when you could type in Flat Earth, and not only could you find a Flat Earth video, like you'd find Derek DeBay as the top result. Now, when you type in Flat Earth, it'll take you to someone who's anti-Flat Earth. But when you could actually find us, you could filter. You could filter by live stream. So that's what I used to do when I first got to this subject. So about 12 years ago, I'd type in Flat Earth. And you'd be like, I've already seen that video. I've already seen that video. I've already, Mark Sargent, Eric DeBay, whoever, Math Powerland. You're like, no, I want something new. So then you go to the filters, press live, and anybody who is having a live stream about Flat Earth, and there's a 50-50 chance someone would be, you could just go and join that live stream, again connecting us back to the nostalgia of having things like AOL live forums where you've got a chat thread. You can just go in and say ASL, meaning age, sex and location, because back in the day people didn't have the ability to share photographs easily. Like, the data was too expensive, not as in money, although it was too expensive in terms of the cost of sending huge chunks of data via photographs. You'd watch a line come in at a time if you were doing it in real time waiting for a photograph. So people just didn't do it. So as an example, I can remember, like with anything back in those particular times, I used it as a means of meeting women. So if I was out on a particular forum, it wouldn't necessarily be a dating forum, but it would have 50% chance that half the people who participate in that particular forum are female. If you can filter them down by asking how old they are, there's a reasonable chance that after doing that 10 times, you'll actually come across somebody in your age category that wants to go out and meet. Unlikely because of the expansive nature of the internet, but like I say, it's worth trying your arm. And in the forums, that specific requirement or desire, that's a better word, would come with the question age, sex, location. And then by text, you'd have to describe what you were. So I'd be like 6'2", broad shoulders, thin, because people wanted to know whether you were fat or not, hazel eyes, etc., etc. So you describe what you were to somebody, and I'm smiling because I'm thinking in terms of this story to the audience, should I tell the next bit, which is to say I met various different women without having even seen their picture. So based on their descriptions of themselves and my description to them of me, you'd be like, okay, well, you live locally to me, let's go and have a meet and greet, let's go and have a date. So you go out and it'd be more exciting for the fact that you kind of didn't know what they'd look like. You'd set a time, you'd set a place, and then you'd be like, is that her? Now today, it's gone so far the other end of the extreme where you do get a photograph, but it's got so many filters on it that you go, oh, yes, definitely can't wait to meet this chick. And then somebody goes, hi, I'm the chick you're meeting. You're like, no, you're not. But I remember that also happening in terms of descriptions. One particular girl was like, yes, I'm thin. And I met her and she wasn't. She was massively overweight. And I was like, I'm gutted. Why? Well, because you didn't tell me you were massively overweight. She's like, well, I thought you wouldn't meet me. And I was like, well, no, I wouldn't have. But that's how it was back then. If it had just got a photo, I wouldn't have needed to have let her down. And, we still had a drink together, and then that was it, parted company. But the point is, now, like I say, it's the other extreme. You go on a dating site, look, see someone you like, and it isn't necessarily what they'll look like when they turn up. They might look 20 years older and far, far worse skin and nowhere near as nice a physique or whatever it is that you can do with Instagram filters. I don't personally use Instagram, but I've seen enough videos from the Taylor the Fiends and Manospheres of the world to know exactly how it works currently. And it does amuse me greatly, which is why I watch those things. Anyway, so yeah, that's what we were doing in the pre-show, reminiscing about the old times of the internet. And that does directly apply to us now. There's people at the moment who want to make their mark in history, and I kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, what matters is what you're doing with your time right now. And I really do like the fact that in Flat Earth, it's become that little bit more disposable. You might think, well, that's bad, right? No, it doesn't affect me as a YouTuber. The subject's evergreen, right? What we're currently waiting on is the next wave of normies who want to brace against Flat Earth measurements. That's what will happen soon. It will come, I absolutely guarantee you. But we're in a nice little calm bit at the moment, the calm before the storm. And everything's roses, as Neil would say. And in the interim period, while everything's roses, we can contemplate the fact that we aren't actually that significant to the subject. Like, flat earthers in general are pretty insignificant when it comes to the nature of Earth and its measurements for practical applications. Those practical applications take place regardless of if we're discussing it with people who are very keen to let us know that we're wrong when we say, as opposed to just know or measure, the Earth as being a flat plane. They want to tell you all about their religion of heliocentrism and how you should really come back to it, or that you're causing problems for not being in it, or that you're going to cause the end of the world for professing you're departing from it. So that discussion is inconsequential to, well, how do we actually measure Earth? Well, we measure it as a flat plane. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the discussion then. Yeah, basically. There's no need to tell anybody about it. If they ever need to utilise a map or a scale, or if they're the ones producing the map and surveying the territory, or if they're utilising the map to fly over the territory with distance and altitude, regardless of what you're doing, building, surveying, mapping, charting, flying, sailing, they're all using flat Earth measurements anyway. So what difference does it make in the moment if we pass that on to a next man? I don't need to convert globe believers anymore. And that's a very freeing feeling. It's far more laid back here in FED, knowing that, well, the debate ended a couple of years ago when we figured out it's just measured flat. And I add the word just intentionally, because it just is what it is, and it being that way is how it's dealt with when there's some consequence attached to actually measuring, surveying, building, flying, sailing across Earth's surface. But we're not doing that. I'm sat in front of a camera. I'm not sailing. I'm not on a boat or a plane. I'm not a cartographer. I'm not making any maps. I'm not even using the maps and their flat scales. So from that perspective, it's like, well, what purpose do we have here? Well, we do have a specific purpose. We've been bought in, me and everybody else mostly around me currently, I mean, that may change in the future, have been bought into the subject of flat Earth from roads of conspiracy. So that our purpose is to talk primarily and initially in a kind of bait and switch way about flat Earth, but then immediately transition to talking about something else that you've just studied at a greater extent. So for me, psychopathy, that was the most recent study before coming to flat Earth. Now, don't get me wrong, in terms of hours and time spent on the subject, flat Earth massively outstrips my time that I spent looking at psychopathy, because I was engaged or embroiled, or however you want to describe it, in a tribunal with a formal employer. And you kind of wanted to, for me, know what made the person I was up against tick and why they behaved the way they did, leading me to investigate psychopathy. But in this particular instance, flat Earth has lingered around because there's that feeling that, or was past tense, a feeling that you hadn't quite reached the point where you could say for sure and without a doubt that Earth is flat. You kind of knew, and you'd exclaim that you knew it, balls to bones, a la Matrix descriptions from the Oracle to Neo. But you didn't. I didn't. I can speak personally from my experience and those around me who have discussed this with me. Whereas now, as of, like I say, a couple of years ago, you go, I don't have any bearing on this. I'm a YouTuber. If you moan that a mile's flat and linear when it's applied to the surface level measurements of Earth's surface everywhere without exception, you can actually do that. You're entitled to your belief. It, again, by contrast, doesn't have any effect on me unless I allow it to, because I feel it's my duty to convert you to knowing that it's going to be measured flat anyway, regardless. It's like, what's the point?
I just got into that just yesterday with somebody who's challenging that some guys are using a water level. I've got on my Facebook page. They're using a water level to level some posts and find the ground level and stuff. And or someone is like, you don't know what level is, and the ground there that they're on isn't level, and get into like nautical miles. And again, do you know the difference between nautical and statute miles? And
yes,
like, you know, they're both linear, 160, 169. But yeah, they're both linear. That's it. Oh, they just can't. They want me to say something so that they can point out how dumb I am, because straight linear obviously means it curving around the ball.
And so fulfills your character arc and purpose in the discussion that's discussed a couple of minutes ago by me. So if you're not here to lay out the map, if you're not here to survey the terrain, if you're not here to negotiate the terrain by land or sea or air, then what is your purpose? Well, you play out your purpose when you sit in front of someone so that they can wait for an opportunity to tell you how you're a dumb flat earther. That's your purpose. Not you become the stereotype in this example, but that's pretty much what I said prior to you suggesting it. There is a purpose, and that's for us to be brought here from conspiratorial paths so that we can be mocked and ridiculed, and the subject of how Earth is measured can be kept separate over there from the debate about whether or not Earth is spherical, headed flat Earth. Whether or not Earth is spherical is not flat Earth, but that's what it's been coerced into being. You're led here from a conspiratorial path and then told what you should debate about. What you, newly badged up flurf, need to debate about is how far we should see, given that we are definitely on a ball. So assume you're on a ball and then go out and look for an Earth curve. When you don't see it, report back about how we see too far. too far based on how Earth curve should be in the way, but isn't. Well, given that it should be in the way, everyone around you listening to you discuss the subject will just be hearing, where should Earth curve be? That's the point. Where now, present tense, where Earth curve should be, well, it's got a horizontal linear distance mile ascribed to any measurement of any distance to anything off any map ever. Why are we having this conversation? It's measured flat in miles. You have to punch them into your stupid calculator that assumes the very opposite of what you're measuring the ground as, flat and linear for distance in miles. So why are we having this conversation? Because you need to take that which is measured flat in miles and altitude and pump it into a calculator that automatically assumes that Earth is spherical. No, the ground's got to be measured flat though, hasn't it? And it is. So this seems like we've been funneled into a discussion where we use the begging the question, that's to say it automatically assumes its outcome, proof of nothing, because it's using flat Earth measurements to suggest the distance to a horizon in an orthographic view that removes perspective. Earth curve calculator. Earth curve calculator meaning that it's automatically assumed Earth has curvature. And you can fiddle with the parameters of the calculation based on a derivative radial value that gets you the calculation's foundations. So where'd you get your radial value? By measuring Earth flat, of course.
I think that was, for me, that was, I think the pivotal point with the black swan is when we started discussing how it was kind of ironic that we had to presuppose the radius in order to even present the logical consistency argument. So we were still then proposing the globe in order to point out to them that the Earth curve, suggested Earth curve, is not geometric. I think that was a pretty profound tipping point, at least for me.
Yeah, and at the time it was a good argument. Now it has to be finagled into current rhetoric. If the Earth is a sphere with a flat Earth derived radial value of 3959 miles, then every flat Earth distance to the horizon can be no more than 1.22 times the square root of the observer's perpendicular altitude measured off sea level, a flat Earth prerequisite. And the distance, a flat Earth prerequisite in linear miles, to a couple of oil rigs that we measure flat to get it, has a horizon behind the oil rigs. Like, okay, so we've got 6 flat Earth measurements before we get to the conclusion. The horizons behind oil rigs that we've got flat Earth measurements in a linear format to know how far they are. So we can punch into a calculator our altitude off sea level, measured flat in the first instance. It just seems like a bit of an unnecessary dance when you know it's just measured flat for every single value that's ever used in the argument. That's not to say it didn't serve its purpose at the time, but like everything, it's got its own entropy. I've said this about basically every single housekeeping question. What seems really important at the time often is almost inconsequential a couple of years later in this subject matter. I learnt that with the Isle of Man. At the time, it seemed like the most important thing in the whole wide world. A couple of years after its conclusion, half the people watching didn't even know it even happened. Didn't even matter. Fast forward 10 years, and we go, why did we do that again? All we needed to say was, the lighthouse is 30 miles away, Earth's flat. What, you want to take that measurement and then put it through a calculator that suggests that at 30 miles there should be a physical geometric sphere edge horizon based on your flat Earth altitude from sea level? That seems silly. What a waste of time. But back then it seemed like a really important argument. Look, Anthony Riley's caught McCord Lighthouse from his belly at the beach about a foot above sea level. Oh right, so we've got sea level. And as a master reference to compare these two items, observation point and observation, to later put into a calculation that ignores perspective, we will need both items height off sea level. Yeah, we will, yeah. And how do we know it's height off sea level? Well, we've measured the altitudes with respect to sea level to the millimetre accuracy. All right. Yeah. Why are we taking pictures of anything?
Wow.
Yeah, wow, indeed. Yeah, today's news is tomorrow's fish and chip wrapping, is the moral of this story. And it'll be the same for certain things that we seem to put focus on now. As much as every time I say this, it feels weird to say it, but I know it's true. While we are telling you now, well, it's just measured flat. And we will come along to supersede that. Now you go, well, it's not even an argument. How could you supersede it? It's just a fact that won't change. Yeah, I know. But based on past experience, no matter what the subject, no matter how silver that silver bullet is, no matter how shiny and valuable you feel it is while it's in your pocket, something will come along that's better. It always does.
I don't understand that. What is it going to be, more flat?
I've heard you say the same sorts of things about all of the other arguments, in quotes, that we've had over the years, Neil. Oh, what's going to come? Can something come along to debunk it more?
Well, once you get to the point where you know what the measurements are, maybe you're going to discover the exact measurements of the Earth. Okay, but you're never going to get more flat than it is. I don't get that. How are you going to supersede a measurement?
Put a pin in this question that you're asking me, and in 12 months, 18 months, 2 years' time, when we're talking about something else and ascribing a higher degree of importance to it, you'll remember you've had this conversation with me. Now, as I said in the pre-show, what's important? Is it pondering the past? Is it contemplating what might be in the future? Or is it this conversation right now? Which of those three things is the most important, Neil?
Conversation we're having.
Right. So in this moment, this is what matters. The current rhetoric, what we're doing right here, right now. If flat Earth debate is to be described in its historical value, then the land that's ripped out by the glacier, by metaphor, that flat Earth debate is, a slow-moving ice river that's at surface level, or at least at first blush, when you look at it, it's not doing a great deal. But in reality, it's violently ripping out huge chunks of the land around it. So from that perspective, it's best to just ponder the serene beauty that's in front of you right now. The land's already been ripped, past tense, out by the glacier's progression to date. So what you see right there and then is what you get. We're saying, well, will it open up a bigger delta towards the end where it meets the ocean? Will it have a deeper gorge being eroded and then melted if the temperature rises in the future? Why? Why contemplate it when you're standing there experiencing the beauty right then and there? I mean, you could just get out your camera phone and start filming it and not even look at it, just look at your little screen, as a lot of people do. But in reality, contemplating things as they may have been, or contemplating things as they may be in the future, it means often, I'm not saying always, like we do now, we're discussing the past, but by discussing the past, we are enjoying the moment in the present. But a lot of people do waste a lot of their lives away contemplating what can be. I feel really guilty of this at the moment because of the book, right? I'll, at the end of some days, because I'll have thought about it a lot, when's it coming out? How long will it be till I can start actually putting the link below my video and talk about it in earnest and going out and talking? I feel like I'm like wasting that moment because I'm concerned about what might be in the future with material that's taken a long time to produce. And I feel guilty, like sincerely. I'm like, I'm not wasting a day doing that, but wasting any time contemplating what might be. It'll come out when it comes out. My attitude's far more earnest when I've got the Flat Earth Debate Nathan Oakley persona and I'm on camera and I'm talking to you about it, Neil. I'm like, it'll come out when it comes out. Well, the truth is, when I'm actually, going to bed at night, I'm like, will I get an email from my publisher tomorrow? What will be the task that I'll have to do? Will it be the no more tasks, green light, it's coming out tomorrow? What will be the email? And you think, well, that sort of, that ponderance raises your anxiety level. And that day might come. You might not even make it to tomorrow. You might get hit by a bus or something. You know what I mean? In which case, that time spent pondering about what might be is wasted. Now, obviously having a plan for something you want to achieve in the future and then spending the time in the moment to actually achieve that ends isn't a waste of time. But pondering it when there's nothing you can do about it, you're just in someone else's hands and you're just waiting, it is a waste of time. It's like, well, just get on with something else. It'll happen. A lot of people are waiting for the day that everyone wakes up to this subject, right? They'll ask things like, when do you think everybody will realise it's flat? Or when will everybody stop being controlled by the heliocentric one world religion? And you're like, what's going on with you right now? Where are you? You're in this moment having this discussion. In the negative, it would be our anti-flat earth counterparts that ponder, when will it end? When will it stop? When will these flirts go away and stop ruining my day after day? So, well, if you're pondering the exposure of a flat earther when the moment is offering you algorithmic favoritism, it's like, why not lap up and enjoy the algorithmic favoritism that you are afforded for being in line with the one world religion's rhetoric when compared to everybody else that's around you? You all have a similar viewpoint, you have a consensus. So the fact that you're in a subject where the consensus favours you and the algorithm favours you, why not rejoice? None of them do. They want to fight the flat earth. You're like, you're in the most privileged position, yet you want to fight. There's no war. What are you doing? Why would you want to brace against something when all that's going to do is give you bruises? I can ponder these things now and have done for the last couple of years because I feel like I don't need to concern myself with the discussion anymore. There isn't one. Earth's just measured flat. Therefore, it's, well, why do these people behave the way they do? And out of intrigue, you start psychoanalyzing them. Why do you want to behave that way? Makes no sense to me. What's in it for you? Like I did with you earlier, Surf Daddy, basically.
Yeah, I think I agree with you pretty much everything. I think I ponder the nuance of the fact that we've always measured the Earth flat. We've successfully segregated how we navigate and how we measure the surface of Earth away from the conspiracy topics, the whole zeitgeist of flat versus round, flat versus globe, and all that. And we've kept the utilitarian, useful, very useful, life-saving measurements, how we measure the Earth. And we've kept that separate forever from the topic of the actual nature of the surface of Earth. That's kind of fascinated me, pondering what will be the consequences of more and more people realizing that we've always measured the Earth flat. And it goes from absolutely nothing changing to, people start getting mad at NASA for faking stuff, and professors of astronomy from making stuff up and stuff like that. It's just hard to tell. It's just going to be a paradigm shift, and it'll be subtle, I think, because we've always measured the Earth flat and kept the idea of that separate from the controversies we've built up between the nature of creation. Interesting stuff to ponder.
Indeed it is. But we're going to continue in the meantime with the Feast of Nonsense list that you supplied about, 10 days ago. And number 41 on the list is the Bedford level experiment. Notwithstanding that this is not an experiment, it's another perfect example of whistling past flat Earth prerequisites in the horizontal linear distance variety and whistling past flat Earth prerequisites in the altitude variety to assert in an orthographic representation how far a distance to a geometric horizon would obscure your view if the Earth, based on radial values derived also from flat Earth measurements, was begged as a question to suggest the distance that a boat would disappear along a very flat, long canal. Now, the Bedford level is the name of the canal. Experiment is the name of the actualization of a cause and effect suppositional statement arranged after observing a natural phenomena. In the case of the Bedford level experiment, there is no natural phenomena. It's just man doing what man does, looking at things and assessing them, and in this case, running mathematics of flat Earth measurements through begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculations. It's the original We See Too Far, put into the form that makes it sound sciencey, pondered on by flat earthers and alleged to be proving something in the negative with regards to an automatically assumed sphericity. So it is one of the things that trained us as flat earthers for the last, for me, 10 or 12 years, to automatically assume Earth's sphericity and then ponder how far we should see and then go out and test for how the geometric horizon's absence proves how spherical we are not. Automatically whistling past several flat Earth prerequisites in terms of altitude and distance measurements. Surface level is measured flat. To have the argument, you have to remove yourself from the fact that Earth is measured flat and start pondering how you can process those flat Earth measurements and derivations in the case of the spherical radial value into an argument about whether or not Earth is a ball. The Bedford level experiment is a lot to answer for as far as I'm concerned. Now, if I was in a position where I felt that there was still a debate to have, I'd probably be quite annoyed with those who are out there suggesting A, that it's an experiment, it isn't, or B, that it in any way connects itself to flat Earth beyond the measurements that are being ignored when you check if you can see too far or not. Anybody got, this is one of the things on the list, has anybody got any comments on the Bedford level experiment, in quotes?
Was that the boat and the telescope? Is that what that's referring to in the Bedford level experiment?
Yeah, watching a boat go into the distance. But on
okay, that's what I thought. I wanted to make sure I was correct on that.
Anybody got anything to comment on it? Like I say, my disdain towards it is because it's the originator of We See Too Far.
My main comment is that I'm kind of sad that it took me this long to be able to just say water is level when it's at rest and stick to it and not go beyond that. I just, Bedford level, we've got salt flats, we've got abyssal plains, flat plains, level, horizons horizontal. They're just, it's like in your face. And it's just, like I was saying earlier, it's amazing we don't just know that as a fact.
Okay, we're only 2 down for today, and I'm already in need of assistance because I don't know what this is talking about. So it says Tesla's real scientific experiments. What? I have no idea what this is babbling on about. How's this in a flat Earth list?
Free energy, baby.
Something with the ether, yeah, and like he was going to say free energy. That's what I think they're going, or that's where that's going.
Oh, it's the ether sensation.
Well, actually, wasn't his deal to just send electricity through the air? So he was basically horizontally broadcasting electricity wirelessly, I think is what his big tower thing was. Someone can correct me on that if they're a test light. But I think that was one of the things that, everything he dealt with required a flat earth to work and to prove. So that's why I think Tesla's on there. But again, that's another weak proof that shouldn't be on there when you could just stick with how we measure stuff and use it practically.
I wrote a poem about this and then recently turned it into some music, so we might as well have a little musical interlude. Why the hell not?
Subscribe to Nathan Oakley 1918 without protestation or procrastination, and at no risk of demonetization. The ether sensation is the manifestation of the vibration when viewing libration and a perturbation and a variation with background radiation. When we view illumination, there is no postulation in my verbal masturbation, because perception of the visualization of light emanation in a rotation toroidation of magnetization through vacuum evacuation show the maxwellization propagation with emotion demonstration phase quantization via quantum induction validation, where we view the Michelson-Morley experimentation showing consistent variation, observation, when illumination went on vacation and aberration and atmosphere stratification. And that's a miniaturization of the ether explanation. If you're lacking comprehension, it's because of your education that I mentioned the free power generation. Long live the ether. This declaration is now for your hypothesization. Subscribe to Nathan Oakley 1980.
Next, all of our senses say the Earth is flat and stationary. Got something
All of
like
our what?
all of our senses say that the Earth is flat and stationary. That's what it says. It's in number 43.
Those senses speak. Okay, let me hear what my sight is saying.
Don't do it, Neil. Stop touching it.
We only do observe the Earth flat, though. I would agree with that.
I mean,
Our senses do dictate it.
so I've got this in the book, in the chapter on rotation, which is to say that in connection with having a natural phenomena to study, there is no natural phenomena to study when it comes to the suggestion of rotation. Now, your vestibular system would let you know if you were moving. That's your inner ear, what you were taught in school with the 3 rings with fluid in them that lets you know if you're off kilter or moving. That's what lets you know. Well, you'd know if we were rotating, but it's a non-positive claim. When somebody else suggests that we are moving, it is their burden to prove their extraordinary claim, not your claim to disprove it. Now, you can disprove it by your own experience, and I have used that as an example in the book, but after prefacing that fact by saying it is not incumbent upon you to disprove something that is claimed to be in existence that has the burden upon the person claiming it and hasn't been substantiated. You don't have to turn around and say, well, no, we're not a roast chicken. Okay, why would you say that? Well, the guy over there says we are. Well, let him. Let him prove it. And if he doesn't, then you don't have to accept it. They're entitled to their belief, which is all Earth being a moving entity is a belief. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to go about disproving it either, because you're disproving a non-positive claim, which is just crazy. If you want to know how to debunk their positive assertion when they do suggest that they've got proof, their suggested evidence for Earth turning is that Earth is a non-inertial turning frame of reference based on the observation of a Coriolis deflection. What does that mean? Well, a deflection apparent in nature that's induced by you rotating on a flat non-inertial frame of reference as you observe items travelling straight through an inertial frame of reference, making them appear to drift because you are turning underneath them. The example being, if you're on a merry-go-round and you have two people standing on the ground that the merry-go-round is attached to, so they are not rotating. They're just standing on opposite ends of the merry-go-round that you are sat on, rotating. So you are the observer who is going to describe Coriolis deflection as you rotate on this merry-go-round. When the two other participants toss the ball to one another in a straight line, you, rotating underneath that ball's straight path, will see the ball appear to drift. That not actual deflection is the Coriolis effect. The force that makes it seem to curve is the pseudo force of Coriolis. Pseudo because it's not actually curving. It appears to curve as you turn underneath. This effect, the Coriolis effect, is alleged to be demonstrable on Earth's surface. Ergo, Earth is claimed to turn underneath objects travelling through an inertial reference frame. If this was true, then you would observe a plane seem to curve as you turn underneath the plane, meaning that Earth is turning underneath planes if this claim is true. And if Earth turns underneath planes, it would shorten their flight times when travelling west. A flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would only take an hour and a half, rather than the 4 hours the flight takes, because Earth would be turning underneath the plane. Now that is the undoing of the alleged burden being satisfied by someone who asserts Earth is turning, we can prove it with Coriolis deflection. 15 degrees an hour is the essential rate they claim we must see and do not. We don't launch drones and watch the Earth turn underneath them. They can hover. If Earth turns underneath planes at a rate of 15 degrees an hour, then you could launch a hot air balloon and wait for the next continent along to come to you. This does not happen. When we point out how this doesn't happen, we are told by people who are on the side that asserts we will observe 15 degrees an hour of Coriolis deflection, that, quote, you and your reference frames have been ruined, end quote, Simon Dan. A relinquishment of the necessity to have a rotating, non-inertial, flat Earth only mathematical frame of reference, turning beneath a second inertial frame of reference with objects traversing that you can watch appear to drift. That's 2 reference frames. What's that? They're ruined? No, we just don't meet the burden incumbent on the claimant when they, globe believers, suggest we have a Coriolis deflection induced by 2 reference frames that we don't see the effect of and are subsequently relinquished with quotes like you and your reference frames have been ruined, end quote, Simon Dan. So to boil it down in summary, we don't have any proof we spin. You don't have to disprove that we do. So it's not incumbent on you to appeal to your vestibulary system in suggestion that we aren't observing something? No, in the same way I don't have to appeal to my nasal system when I say we're not a roast chicken. It's incumbent on the claimant to demonstrate we are a roast chicken, rather than me saying, well, I can't smell anything. No, you can't feel anything. But you're not making a positive claim. Not rotating isn't a positive claim. Now, that was only half of the statement in this particular instance. The other half was flat, based on sensory perception. No, flat based on how we measure it and practically apply it to all things that would be death-inducing if we didn't. People would die at sea and crash into mountains, but for the fact that we have measured the topographical deviations with respect to a averaged sea level. Earth has been measured flat so that people can traverse it. That's how we know it's flat. We've measured it flat. That's how it's practically applied. You're not feeling how flat it is, and looking at how flat it is means nothing until you line up your tool with the horizon, the point where the ground appears to meet the sky, and take measurements so you can find your location. Practically applied in a dinghy, if your boat sank, then you won't die. You'll find your way home. You'll know your position. But saying, well, it feels like it's flat, kind of looks like it sounds kind of flat. Who cares? Will that pay a bill? Will that keep you safe at sea? Will that stop you crashing into the side of a mountain? No. They don't appeal to your sensory perceptions when it comes to Earth's flatness. Point out how it's measured. When it comes to Earth not turning, it's a non-positive claim. You don't have to claim anything. Done. Anybody got anything to add on that?
I approve of that message.
I also approve. Number 44. The sun and moon appear the same size. Okay. So they have the same angular size. What's angular size? Well, it's apparent size. That is to say, how it appears and ascribe it an angle. Now, the angular resolution of a light in the sky doesn't have a great deal of practical application. How big it appears doesn't usefully translate into anything that you can put into practical application as just explained in a dinghy. When you're at sea and you want to know where the hell you are, you're going to use a tool to measure angles. You're going to use maps and almanacs to track positional data. That's how you can find out where the hell you are. Knowing that it looks kind of the same size as another light in the sky, so what? If I was to say Mars and Venus have the same exact angular, that's apparent size, how would you turn that into something useful? The answer is you wouldn't. Juxtaposing it with two different lights that might have the same angular size demonstrates how useless this is. It's there for flirfs to argue as a red herring, an inconsequential nonsense waffle that doesn't offer any proof of a belief in a flat Earth. Now, here we are in 2026, where your belief in a flat Earth is utterly inconsequential to how Earth will be measured. If we're utilising the sun or moon in navigational purposes, we'll measure the surface level to acquire an angle from it. It's called an elevation angle. That'll stop you dying. What's that? It kind of looks the same. So who cares? Anybody got anything else on that one?
No, Nathan, just so I was going to say, just, we can obtain elevation angles to these two celestials, get their ground position, and then calculate a distance between their ground position and our ground position at sea level, using the horizontal baseline known as mean sea level.
Okay, next. The globe model was made 500 years ago by occult members. Why people are describing them as occult members, it's the Roman Catholic Church specifically. They're the ones who had all the finances. Those are the ones who owned all the telescopes. They even own all the telescopes now, as far as I'm aware. Most of the Roman Catholic Church is where the money has come from to develop systems like heliocentrism. and we can track their origins based on the historical data that has been given to us, based on scaling in more recent times from Huygens, right the way back through Keplerian orbital elliptical motion. We can track these origins back through Ptolemy. All of the documented history of heliocentrism is readily available. It also has all of the flat Earth prerequisites tied into the historic account. So regardless of the out-of-the-box extrapolations used by people like Kepler, you still need to measure Earth flat to get to that particular point where you can extrapolate out heliocentric elliptical orbital motion. You're going to need flat Earth radial values measured from surface level to acquire to create heliocentrism in the first instance. This suggestion that there's a need to propagate the idea of heliocentrism because it is a mathematical idea created by men as being a cult just makes the person who's pointing it out sound like a conspiratard. If you want to go through the history of heliocentrism, number one, just do a good job of looking up who came up with what and when they came up with it, and explain it for what it is. If you want to engage in historic accounts, which may or may not even be true, but based on their own rhetoric and historic account, they being heliocentrists, you can show where they required flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurements to derive radial values to put into effect heliocentric motion. Earth's measured flat by everyone. There's no exception to that. Doesn't matter if you go back 500 years to document the history of the occultists. What's an occultist? What's a cult mean? Hidden, that's what it means. If you're describing a light being occulted, it means one alleging to be in front of the other. That's what occultation means. So to hide information is to be an occultist. Well, they're not hiding information. Heliocentrists are exposing the public to information. They're creating out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to tracking the stars' movements and better predicting where they'll be at given times. That's what heliocentrism offers. It's a light information study. That's what it is. It's studying the lights in the sky. Now, in order to extrapolate out better understandings of things like retrograde motion, you need out-of-the-box thinking that violates the base principle of the surface that you're standing on to acquire measurements and put them into effect inside a giant glorified protractor that you can paint a pretty picture of a map on. With that system, you can extrapolate out a planar surface that bifurcates the pretty painting of a ball and set it in motion around the sun. That's what heliocentric means. Helios, at the centre. Heliocentric, helios at the centre, sun at the centre. That's what it means. That's all it's done, mathematically put the sun at the centre. Well, that's not a cult. What are they hiding? They're telling you this is the mathematics of how we've extrapolated out retrograde motion. That's it. It's not occulting anything. Now, the reality is that out-of-the-box thinking to better explain a certain motion of certain lights in the sky with a pattern that can be described mathematically required Earth be measured flat. They don't worry about describing it in a very conspiratorial way as being a cult. Just go straight to the brass tacks of what the measurements of Earth's surface were. Well, they were flat. So heliocentrism is built on a foundation of flat Earth measurements. Beyond that, who cares?
Well, how can that be? If they're telling us they're describing the movement of the stars, but if I was on one of those stars, I'd be looking back at a spherical Earth.
No, you wouldn't in the mathematics because you can't. It doesn't work from the position relativistically from the star that you've just described it, because the motion comes from within a ball on the equatorial plane with an extended celestial plane. So the vision that you've got is described from within the ball. The plane of the motion bifurcates the same ball that is a glorified protractor. So you've got a planar surface with the sun at the centre, and that planar surface is running directly through the middle of the ball. What do I mean? If you look at the picture of any orbital motion, often they do this in a way that you can't notice it because it's so small. But if you zoom in at where the ball is, the claim to be mathematical representation of a sphere Earth, not in a vacuum, mathematically described as going around the sun in an orbital motion, you will bifurcate the sphere Earth and have the line of the orbital motion go through the middle of the ball Earth, because that is where it is described from. Now, you cannot then juxtapose the mathematical description onto a position that you're describing from within that ball to look back at the center of a ball to make it convertible mathematically. You can only be in the middle of the ball, bifurcating it on a plane that has been described with an elliptical orbital motion around the sun. You are always inside the heliocentric ball if you're describing its heliocentric motion. Any more on that one? The globe was created 500 years ago from Masonic members of the occult. Any more?
The Roman Catholics would prefer that people believe that than really learn that Copernicus and all those other names that they were taught in school.
Yes, excellent point. Yes. When it comes to the globe Earth versus anti-globe, that's flat Earth, discussion over here, the originators, that's the Roman Catholic Church, would much prefer you blamed it on Freemasons than actually ascribe the sincere origins to the Roman Catholic Church. But that is where they reside. They're the people who controlled all of the lights in the sky when it came to research 500 years ago.
Well, and I also to add that in Christian circles, one of their arguments typically is, look at how many Christians are scientists and astronomers. And they point to people like Copernicus and even Newton, which if you read about Newton, good grief, he was a cult. He was like a grand wizard or something. But yeah, all the people that when people point to everything about quote unquote science and evolution and astronomy and astrophysics and all that stuff, there's a big long laundry list of quote unquote Christians who were scientists. So appeal to authority. Why would they lie? They're good Christians, and they're all heliocentrists. So much better to be able to point out that if you're a dumb flat earther, that comes from Babylonian occult secret knowledge and stuff like that. And that's where that gets flipped around.
They weren't scientists, they're pseudoscientists.
Yes, Neil, we know that, but, you know, people who want to gatekeep this and make their point that Christians think the earth is a globe, in spite of the Bible saying not, they hijack science and Christianity to prove their point.
So do you think if Christians had a proper handle on the scientific method, that would change anything?
No, I think we're beyond. I think they just need to learn how we measure the earth and figure it out from there. And we don't need to point out all this stuff. This feast of nonsense stuff is the stuff that we're saying that we should avoid.
Hold on. They will get to the measurements once they have a comprehension of what science is and what science is not. So then they could throw everything out, and then they could focus on measurement. I think they have to be aware that what they think science is not science.
Yeah, and it's not a measurement. Get down to the measurements. This is where we're at now, isn't it? Yeah, and they can't handle it. They can't deal with the actual measurements. And we're just going through these questions. This is where we are. This is where we was. All this feast of nonsense, stupid questions about the lights in the sky, reference points, Coriolis. What a load of garbage. Sea level, mean sea level, the 0 degree baseline for all elevation profiles on Earth. Simple as that.
Yeah, and you got to remember, even discussing science with the Christian creation scientists, ironically called, they're appealing to the pseudoscience when they're arguing against evolution. Yet at the same time, they old Earth and young Earth creation people both believe that the heliocentric system is scientifically sound. And you can't even point out that the first law of thermodynamics is violated by the whole premise of the Big Bang. And, they just appeal to, God of the gaps and misinterpretation. So I think that appealing to even appealing to trying to get them to understand the scientific method versus everything that their entire lives are built on, which is pseudoscience, astrophysics, that's like an oxymoron, right? So, you're not going to get to people by appealing or by telling them that their entire livelihood is pseudoscience and fake.
Well, it all requires a globe. All that nonsense requires a globe, and there's no measurements of a globe. The only measurements of a globe is elevation angles from sea level to the celestials. Simple as that. No globe.
That's correct.
Right, someone shared this with me in Master B, and it's a comment on a video by a YouTuber called Dad, the Engineer. And the commenter is Flat Earth Guy Fallout 76. Now, I'm not going to read his entire message, but I'm going to give you a general gist of it. Now, hopefully someone will dig out and post from Master B a link to this video, so someone who's watching can actually toddle along to this video and just give the pinned comment, that is to say the videographer, Dad the Engineer, pinned this Flat Earth commenter to the top of his post, at the top of his video thread, comment thread on his video, you know what I mean. Flat Earth Guy Fallout 76, 5 days ago. Dad, I'd like to ruin your worldview, but I think I'll wait till the end of the video first. Remember, quote, no matter how certain you are, you really can't argue with empirical findings, end quote. Your words. I think the video was ace. You give a ton of good information, and it really shows you've done your homework. That's why I think you'll understand my dismantling of your worldview. You know how to fact check things. I want you to fact check this because you, Dad, deserve to know the truth. Right, I'm going to read this particular paragraph. There's 4 paragraphs. I'm just going to read this one. Earth is measured flat by everyone in industry. Tunneling, aviation, celestial navigation, world record long-distance photography, bridge building, interstate systems, elevation above sea level. All require a flat, horizontal plane of reference. You think miles can curve around a spherical planet? ? No! ! Oxford defines miles as, quote, a unit of linear measurement equal to 1,760 yards, approximately 1.609 kilometers, end quote. Linear, without a curve or bend. Miles and kilometers do not curve by definition. Most people do not know the meaning of the words they use. They just assume, based on context, of the way others use the words. I'll bet you, till just now, never really knew what a mile was. This is because miles are the measured distance as the crow flies from city to city. Elevation cannot be taken into account, or that would throw off the distance measurements for accuracy. Physical, testable, repeatable. Physics and measurements are what you have to prove Earth is not what they taught you in schools. I've given you tons of information to look into. If you do, you will find out that I am quite correct. Have a great day, sir. Once again, that was by Flat Earth Guy Fallout 76 on a video by Dad, the Engineer, that's the videographer, and the video is called Your Phone is Not Listening to You, the Truth is Much Worse. It came out 9 days ago. Fallout Guy 76 or whatever, Flat Earth Guy Fallout 76 left his comment 5 days ago. It is the pinned comment on Dad the Engineer's "Your phone is not listening to you. The truth is much worse" video. So hopefully somebody's posted a link from Master B to that video, and you can let Dad the Engineer know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me when he highlighted this comment being pinned by you. Just like to let you know, welcome to Flat Earth. It's measured flat in miles, or something to that effect. Don't be too passive-aggressive. Try not to get your comment instantly removed by the YouTube algorithmic bots or the videographer himself. That's Dad the Engineer. Be polite. Respond to the comment. Give it a thumbs up. It's nice to see that somebody's taking the time to actually read the message and then pin it in his comments when somebody's offered, out of the goodness of their heart, a paradigm-shifting piece of information, as this particular Flat Earth Guy Fallout 76 has done. Kudos to you, sir, whoever you are. Excellent message.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was
Tell you what,
perfect. Give me 1 second to post it, so don't end the show.
Okay.
I posted it in live show comments, but you ought to read. You got to go read his reply to the pinned message before you decide what you're going to write. Still, don't be mean to him, but he's not taking it well. That's why he pinned it.
It's a shame that, because I was hoping that he'd get that and maybe do a video response, and in realization after he's fact checking that, Flat Earth Guy who put the message is absolutely correct, but obviously he's gone in straight into Cogdis.
Of course.
Yeah, his first statement is, as an engineer, I've taken more college level science than the average college graduate. That said, I had enough science by the 5th grade to know the flat earthers were extremely uneducated.
Stop. So what he's done is offered.
Enough science.
So he's offered a resume statement that lends his credibility in the subject arena. I'm very educated. That was the first sentiment that he offered. I am very educated. I've done more science than you've had hot dinners. And based on my high degree of education, I know that flat earthers are stupid. Dad, the engineer. Now I've got to reiterate the facts in the matter. If that's Dad, the engineer's response to that comment, you weren't being challenged on your education status, Dad, the engineer. You were being told how flat and linear Earth is measured in miles. That's what you were being told. Notice I used the word explicitly. Told. He wasn't asking you about whether or not it was the case. He was telling you what a mile is and asking you to check for yourself his facts. He even phrased it that way. Fact check. He offered you facts about how Earth was measured in miles, and you insulted him and built yourself up with a resume statement you weren't asked for. That tells me that you need to justify your own education status to others. That tells me that you are insecure about your own intellect level, or you wouldn't need to lord it over somebody as a response. Actually, in reality, a non sequitur followed by a stereotype fallacy. Do you know how stupid I am? What difference does it make? We're talking about miles, not the intellect level of you, I, or the commenter who's telling you how flat miles are when applied to Earth's surface measurements. Did he ask you for your education status? No, he asked you to fact check, and it seems like you ignored him, Dad the engineer. What a disgrace. I would expect an educated man to understand the words he was reading. Did you read, "Can you let me know how educated you were, you dumbass"? It seems like you read words that weren't there. He didn't ask you to confirm your status. He didn't request a resume statement. He told you how flat Earth's measured in miles.
This is the thing, Nathan. He's gone straight to me. Even if he did have a little fact checking about this and he's realised that there is a point, he can't handle that. And like you say, he's going straight into nonsense science in his education because he can't handle it. He cannot
Education?
handle it.
He demonstrated how uneducated he was. That was concise.
Exactly.
Yeah, he used a fallacy, non sequitur, and a stereotype. You flat earthers, how dare you? How to best and most quickly demonstrate to the reading audience, in this case us, how stupid you are. Yeah, you want to appeal to how educated you are, you'll have me taking a strip off you. That doesn't address how linear miles are. It doesn't demonstrate that you've actually done as requested and fact-checked. That's to say, verified the facts that you were offered. When somebody was quite polite to you, have a good day, sir, I enjoyed your video. This man's the guy putting food on your table. He's the guy that's giving you the ad revenue. And you've chosen to give him a resume statement and insult him, demonstrating how incredibly stupid this man actually is and how he fears his intellectual inferiority. People who know how smart they are don't need to go around telling people how educated they are. They're secure in their own education status. Dad the engineer clearly is not, and needs to project out his resume statement about his intellect level. Well, if you were confident in how smart you were, you'd, number one, not be reading things that aren't there in comments. Nobody asked you how smart you were or how educated you were. You were told about miles. And your response was to stereotype the person being polite to you. What a scumbag. It reminds me of Wayne from the mapping company or the map reading company. Somebody comes along and starts complimenting them in terms of their excellent use of flat earth prerequisites, and they copyright strike them, put their ability to feed their kids in jeopardy, and then engage themselves in discussions about how North is the top of something, like a complete retard. In this case, the guy's non-sequitured away from the actual point being made, gave him a resume statement, and then insulted him. What a scumbag. I haven't even watched the guy and already know he's a wanker.
Nathan, I put the link in the YouTube chat, so if anybody wants it, it's there.
But unlike my disdain, which I'm perfectly entitled to on my own video, if you are to pop along to Dad, the engineer, then please let him know, first and foremost, at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Please don't pass on my disdain in his comment section. There's a good chance he'll just remove it immediately. But do let him know he's getting a bit of love from us. That is to say, we've mentioned his channel and we are promoting it. I have shared his link. I have increased his reach. I have expanded his audience base. What I don't expect in return is to be stereotyped and non-sequitured away from the fact that I'm now reiterating from a point he pinned. Earth's measured flat in miles. If you've done a load of science of engineering, sounds like Dad the engineer doesn't know what science is. It's the elucidation of the phenomena you study in nature by way of a hypothesis actualization. That's experiment. That's science. That's the study of the physical and natural world, otherwise known as physics. That's not engineering. It's not science, you dumbass. You want to give me a resume statement that makes science anything other than the study of the physical and natural world based on natural phenomena with the scientific method? No? Oh, well, I'll just call him dumb. This man who feels the need to appeal to his education when being told how flat miles are. Told,
Why is he
not
bringing
asked.
science into geography?
Because he wants to sniff his own farts. The same exact people who I had a song played out on this very live show appealed to the same fallacy in the song. If you lack in comprehension, it's because of your education. Sound familiar? Yeah, bullshitters who say we'll get free energy use the same shitty trick Dad the engineer used. All right, so we must trust you because you're oh so educated. You don't know what science is, Dad the engineer. But you've got the gall to stereotype somebody who's taken their time to not only line your pockets by watching your videos, he's been polite and kind to you, offered you information, and you've insulted him. Well, wait until you get a load of me, you dumbass. You don't know what science is. You've utilised fallacies. 2, non sequitur in rebuttal. Who gives a shit how smart you think you are? And stereotyping. Oh, all flat earthers, really? Am I going to stereotype all engineers as fart-sniffing idiots who don't know what science is because you don't know what science is, Dad the engineer? I'm done.
I can't believe it. He's pinned it. It's obviously caught his attention in the beginning. It's triggered him or done something. He's pinned it, and now he, instead of fact checking like we've just said, he's had to go straight to insulting. You know what I mean?
I'm
Because
smart.
deep
You're
down
stupid.
inside, he knows what the measurements are. Deep down inside, this is what measurements do to people.
Yep. It's psychological dilemma. This is what's happening. It's a psychological thing with them. They can't deal with it. This is how embedded it is within these people who believe they live on a spinning globe. When you tell them how it's measured flat.
I got a guy in chat going crazy, just constantly. Listen, it's measured flat. That's all there is to it. Just get over it.
Yeah, you don't have to like it. But with that, I will say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the super thanks after the fact, hit me up on PayPal, Patreon, joined as a member, all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Another massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible, and I will see you all in the next video.
But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If Earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat Earth king of rhyme.